Phone on D&D. Okay, it says we're live here. Gotta run over to TikTok. Go live there. Full screen that. Go live on the TikTok.
And just so everybody knows, I'm going to start out with, I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Let's start there.
Oh, God. Well, I guess we know you're not going to lie, so that's good.
All right, so you bet your bottom dollar.
Waiting for people to get in here. Wait a little bit. Got to come over to here to check all the chat, make sure all that stuff's right. Okay. So, okay, so it looks like we are live and I can see all the comments and everything.
I don't get to see him, do I?
I don't think you do. You might, but not the way I have it set up right now. So I think we got a few people in here. Let's get it. Let's get into it. How you doing, Frankie? How's your day?
Busy. We're into Fair Board agreement season, and some people say, they're out doing this or out doing that. Well, if you've ever had to deal with that, that's what I'm into. So, plus this year we're looking at maybe three more events, three more different places. So that, that's gonna add to the hardcore tour this year.
That's good. So how many shows, if you guys get those 3 shows, how many shows are you guys going to have?
I believe that'll be 16.
So those are all in Pennsylvania?
They are. Nobody in Ohio loves me.
I feel the same way.
You're from Ohio.
I know. That's the problem.
There you go.
So you guys are from Pennsylvania. What got you into derbying?
Family. Boy, I can tell you that real quick. At age about 7 or 8, maybe 9, I was the little kid. I don't know. I'm going to tell my age, but George Marshman Productions was his name, and for whatever reason, he took to me as a kid, and I was the kid that set off he would say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I would set off a little cherry bomb from a 9-volt battery. So as a kid. Now, there I am sitting on a little wooden platform, 25 feet from the logs, and I'm watching and feeling the cars. And I knew probably about that time that I was pretty much sunk. And with Dad doing it and doing well, that's where Derby started for me, probably before I was 10. And I've been a part of it ever since.
So were you Derby? So were you derbying before you were promoting, like driving wise, or how did that work?
Yes. Oh yeah. 1985. I drove my first Derby, and the first Derby I ever drove, and I won the feature. Heat and feature.
Where was that at?
Fayette County Fairgrounds, Dunbar, Pennsylvania.
So that's pretty much the playground for the entire Pennsylvania area when it comes to big shows, isn't it?
Me and TJ sort of use it, and I tell you, we around here as far as fairgrounds and locations, there are some others, but not that have quite enough the facility or the room or it being roofed or the infrastructure with the roads. I mean, all that as far as a promoter is something you look at when you go to do a show like that.
Was Fayette County Fairgrounds built to like host derbies, or what was it? Because it's pretty much the perfect derby venue.
Well, yeah. No, it's always been that way since as long as I could ever remember. Going to the fairgrounds. I mean, it was just an arena that they did, fair stuff in.
I get you. So going back towards back in the day, I heard a story the other day that I don't know if this is true or what the deal is. Did you used to carry around a bat back in the day?
I w- I did. I did not use a black flag in my heydays as an official. Um, I started off as after a driver. I drove for over 20 some years. Um, I sat in the seat for a long 20 some years, and then as an official, man, it's been over more than probably 18 or 20 some years now. But in my heyday, instead of a black flag, I used a ball bat wrapped in black tape. And when it was, you didn't stop, or I would point the ball bat at you, or I'd come across the roof. Um, and that thud seemed to always get their attention. Um, so um,
Did you ever have to
probably
hit?
wasn't the best thing in the world. I've been called a few things um, with the bat, the butthole with the bat. I've been, but that was me. Yeah, I as an official, I carried a red flag, green flag, and my black flag was the bat.
Did you ever have to hit anybody with the bat?
No, no, no. And it really wasn't for the purposes of hitting anybody. And I guess now that you look at it, it was just the sound it made on the car. When you hit
I
it with a stick, it's not. But if you would take that bat and I over the on the roof, because of no headline and everything, it really got people's attention. I mean, you looked. I mean, it was um,
I get you.
purposely. That's what it. I mean, it wasn't to hit nobody, but
I
although I
this
had, as an official, I have fought my way out of a few places. So
The story I heard was the reason you were carrying around a bat is because in the drivers' meeting, you would because this was back in the day when people used to just fight like they went to the concession stands, you know. So they said, if you guys are gonna fight, I got a bat. So and then we're gonna go from there. That's the story I was always
well,
told.
no, 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 no. That's a as heard or seen on Facebook or whatever. That's a tall tale. I never used it as any kind of um, people deterrent. Again, the whole thing of it was, and that was just what I found efficient. To be honest with you, but I mean, there was a lot of people that remember me like carrying that bat back in the destruction production days and my Croucher days before that. So
I get you. So obviously you guys were building back in the day when you started hardcore derby promotions and you started putting on shows. What were your guys' classes like? What were the builds like in the area that persuade that?
well, when I first started, I had went to the fair and the Fayette County Fairgrounds, and one of the last times I went before I start promoting, I think there was I went to Fayette on the big night, and man, it was about half full, maybe half full, and the feature had turned into like 6 or 8 minivans, and man, just from going there so long, I had a rapport with some of the fair board people just from coming all the time and being around them. And Mr. Blaney was his name, and he was on a golf cart. Always wore the cowboy hat, and I was standing at the back where you go into the pits, leaning on the fence there, and he pulled up in that golf cart, and he said, "Get in." I got in, and we rode back to. I don't know if anybody ever noticed when you come in Fayette, right before the um, booth that you get your registrations and tickets and stuff. There's a little monument of my buddy from that I had when I did my before I start promoting in October 28th many years ago when Bob passed away. I had a memorial derby, and that was the stone that we bought Bob. So me and Mr. Blaney rode back there, and he looked at me in the eyes and he said, "Are you ready?" And I looked at that stone and it, it hit me that it was my time. For whatever reason, things needed to change. So, and right within that time period, that's where I got a call from a few other guys, and we went ahead and did some derbies, and hardcore was born.
I get you. So when you guys first started out, what was the hardest part with starting out as a new promoter? Like, what was the most challenging obstacle you guys faced?
Organization, getting all the things we need, gelling as a team. And I call it a team because I look at all the promoters out there, and I tell you, it takes all of them. Getting to learn each other, stuff like that. That was probably the toughest thing I've seen. From being in it so many years, as a one way or another with different people, kind of knew what I was up against or what I was getting into. Some of the other guys, well, you can tell them, but until they experience, and I'm sure there's a lot of people on here that I'll look them in the eye and say the same thing. From the stands, from the pit area, there's a difference. So getting into the promotional part, that's been tough, and it's definitely been the toughest thing I've done.
I get you. Real quick before we go any farther, so there is a link. I believe it is posted in the description of this live. It's not a link. It's the address for PayPal for Crashing for Kids Cancer. We got quite a decent audience in here tonight. So tonight was the funeral or the viewing for Benson, one of the Crashing for Kids Cancer kids, because he recently passed away. And when I got out of school, me and Mom went down there, and it was truly heartbreaking just to see that in general. It was terrible, is what it was. So the PayPal username for Crashing for Kids Cancer is in the description of this video. All money sent to there tonight will go directly towards Austin Mott and his family to help mourn their loss, because it's like I don't usually get emotional, but like that one, it was
it makes you happy. It makes you wonder it makes you happy about the things that you do have, and that what you've been a part of, and be able to you're still here today. I'm sure it does make you think, and all the crying and whining that most of us do makes it kind of small compared to what that young man went through, and God bless his passing, and may he rest in peace.
So if you guys, it's like I said, the PayPal for Crashing for Kids Cancer, it's in the description of this. It should be, at least. Go donate something. Just show your support to them guys, because we went there and they were going through a rough time. I could tell. Anyways, let's get back into the live. So even now, Frankie, what is one of the most challenging parts of putting on shows all year round and basically maintaining hardcore derby promotions and not going under?
It's a challenge in being profitable. Man, I tell you, I say it's for the drivers, and I've given all I can from the drivers. When I go to these meetings, like here we are at 7:45, and I'm supposed to be at this meeting tonight. I missed at 7, so I'm going to end up going here at 9 or something at night. Under making some of the fair board people understand about why I want bigger payouts, why I want to do better, why I want to bring better. I have a payroll for better inspection people and all those things. It's because of the drivers. But unfortunately, some of the fair boards, and not all of them, and I don't want to stereotype them, but there's some that probably wouldn't, if you were said you would smash Budweiser cans on Saturday, as long as you had Budweiser cans and people, I don't know if they would care or not. So I'm big on educating the customer on, I have a sheet that shows what cars cost, shows what it costs to put a cage in a thing. I'm not here to take their money. I want to justify the ends, the means that justify the end there with this is what I want to do, and this is why I want to do it. I'm not just blowing smoke.
I get you. So is it when you're in those meetings? How hard? Like, do they listen to you, or like when you try to tell them the numbers, do they believe you, or do they think you're crazy?
Well, usually you're dealing with a smaller group than the whole fair board at times, either a 2 to 4 man committee or usually the outdoor guy. There's maybe one in some instances. Um, it all depends on that guy and or that committee. Um, there, we went to Fayette. That committee didn't believe me. They thought that there was a better idea, and man, it hurt. I can tell you, it hurt when I lost that show. But we're back now, and things have changed, and I have a great rapport with those guys at Fayette County, and man, I hope to keep it and make it bigger and better than before ever. So
I get you. So when you even for Fayette County, I find that hard to believe they like couldn't justify spending the money when they see the shows that go on at that fairgrounds.
yeah, I do understand that most fairs have between 5 and 10 days to make all their money that they can for the entire year or the bulk of it. So I do get it. I understand. But this shows the proof is in the pudding. What the demolition derby brings to the county fairs compared to the concerts and the monster trucks and the motorcycles and um by far it's the draw or the cash cow or and with them I try to tell them I'm not trying to take it all, but give me enough to make a good show. I mean, I can tell you that a couple monster trucks for some like couple 3 hours probably cost $25,000. I wish I had that budget, on a fair night for one night. I just don't.
Why do the fairs spend that much money on monster trucks but not on the derby when that's what brings in most of the money?
That you would have to talk to some of the fair. I'm not sure. It's just, I mean, guys like it. It does well. It's probably up there. The people like it. It's something different, but um, again, it's something that number has been that number for. It's always been expensive. The derbies, back in the day when it was 500 to win and some $10 trophies, and you had 100 cars and 3 heats, and everybody paid to get in. And at the end of it, your whole ball wax was a couple grand. They're not. It's a little bit shock and awe when you get into some new numbers and things. So
when you're in those fair board meetings, like, are you trying? How hard is it to explain to these guys what it takes to truly get a good show to happen? Like,
well,
because
it's very hard, and a lot of them ask you to bid or a proposal. In my mind, a bid is okay. You send me a paper. I want a 2024 F450 white dually, this motor, this bed, this. Then we can all we can all bid on that. But there's things I do that I mean, that I can't put. I mean, what do you mean bid? Um, it's so hard to bid on things like that because I mean, you run into where insurances and payroll and I bought an $8,000 lift to haul with me when I come to give a fair inspection. I try to get the best people I can and pay them to do a job. The flyers and the promotions, the going other places, traveling across the country, telling people about hardcore and the places we're going to be. Um, put a number on that.
So, if you don't mind sharing this, when you guys go to a regular county fair, how much do you usually charge?
It all depends. Yeah, I'll explain it this way. It's a 12-inch pizza. With the county fairs, some like it cut up in 8 pieces. Some like to say they take that 12-inch pizza and cut it in 16s to say they got 16s. But in the big circle, it's still a 12-inch pizza. It's just everybody wants to cut up a different. The number is the same, give or take. I mean, it's all relatively the same. It's how they want to get there.
I get what you're saying. So, what is one of the main differences from when you're promoting a show like, let's say, just Fayette County Fair, like the fair throughout the summer, compared to when you guys promote your final show, the Final Confrontation?
Well, I get accused of too many flyers and too many posts, and I put it out there. I continue. I don't think I change. I promote the shit out of everything I can that I got coming. It's a full-time job. If you've with the flyers and getting everything done and registrations and you just name it, getting all your P's and Q's together to go. So
I get what you're saying, Frankie. So let me look at my questions again. I forgot what I was going to say. Let's see here. So what is the one of the main differences from when you guys are promoting one of the shows? Is there obviously I'm guessing the car counts are a little bigger, but does that trigger more problems in the pits and
no.
inspection and stuff like that?
No, just time frame. You just need to give yourself more time frame. You need to have a smart lineup. Days, what cars should run the first day, what cars should run the second day, the lineup that they should use. Can you bring a car the first day, fix it, run it the second day? Just there's all those things that go into when you're making lineups and days. With the fairs, the fair board wants you to be in, usually starting at 7 and done it, and then within 2.5 hours and back out into the fair spending money.
So how much differently is it dealing with the fair board when you're dealing with them for one of your big shows like Final Confrontation compared to their show? What's the differences there?
I've only actually, one venue, and I've been at Fayette since the beginning. So maybe I'm not a real good, I know the way that they work things. Now that I've been involved with the expo, I've got a little taste of how another fair does things. And again, I find vast differences. So the way that all works. So some being very helpful, some being more helpful than others, some being, here it is, this is what it cost. Good luck to you.
Speaking of the expo, what is it? What are the hardest challenges you guys face promoting that? Because that's basically a big event in a way. It's not a direct derby.
Yeah, this is going to be the biggest and best yet. My cohorts, Jeff Showman, Mark Elliott, Casey Smith, all putting tireless work in to making this one 2024 the biggest and best there is. 2 cadet heats, exhibition heats. I'm going to say more exhibitors and things than you could shake a stick at this year. If you sell parts and you don't come to this, you bumped your head. The vast people and stuff that are coming from all over the place, I wouldn't miss it for the world.
I get you. So how did you guys get involved with promoting the expo? How did you link up with Casey and Mark and Jeffy?
Well, behind the scenes, I mean, we all fit. Mark did the MC, and back when it was in Mercer, Jeffy was behind the scenes. I played a role again behind the scenes with Casey, and just because of the undertaking at the SMW place. I mean, them having to shut the thing down to get ready, shut the thing down, for cleanup. There was just, him taking all that cost and all that on himself. Again, I was to chip in wherever I could, however I could, to help out and behind the scenes. Again, with the derbies and things, I kind of grabbed that off his plate and I said I'd handle it.
I get you. So diving deep farther into the expo. So last year, I know you had your youth full size cadet class,
Yeah.
and then you had your vans promoters versus vendors. So
yeah.
So why did you guys decide to get rid of the vendors versus promoters class and go towards just the strictly youth?
Just like you said, we can't get along. We just, I mean, as it started, you had to be with this and that, and then so people started coming out of the woodwork that they worked at this and they was doing it for that, and it just, I don't know, it just turned into a road that we didn't want to go down. Again, it was some cards we were dealt. We played them the best way we could, and now we don't want to play those cards anymore, so we eliminated it.
I get what you're saying, Frankie. So, you brought up a very interesting point, which kind of leads us into one of the quote unquote hot topics is why does nobody get along?
I don't know that nobody gets along. I just think that we're our own worst enemy in derby world, that we try to tear things apart as opposed to coming together. Man, it's like an old diesel trying to start in the winter, man. It just, when it puffs smoke, somebody cuts the battery cable. So kind of way it feels. So I don't know. I don't know if it's egos, if it's what it is that keeps boundaries. I think we're better and closer than we were 4 years ago. There's a ton of promoters and a ton of drivers I know now that are good. And when I say tears apart, I think it's a real small percentage. I think for the most part, they're great guys that just won a derby. And they're promoters. I think there's a lot of them out there for the right reasons. But as in anything, as in cops, robbers, you name it, there's always a few bad ones that seem to have to ruin it for the whole deal.
So one of the things that's been very, very, very popular within the past few weeks is a unified rule set. What are your thoughts on a unified rule set?
The first thing that comes to mind is we get together and say, okay, we're going to do it. Then the unified rule set comes out. The first thing you're going to hear, I wanted unified rules, but not that set of unified rules. I didn't know it was going to be that set of unified rules. Oh, you mean I got to follow those rules? I don't like those rules. I wanted this bumper. I wanted that bumper. We should have pointies. We should have this. Why can't I do that? What do you mean ball joints? What do you mean I can't have a bumper, a rear a rear end braced? Man, oh days. I mean, it just. So I caution everybody to be careful what they wish for, because it may just not be the unified rule set that you want. And but that being said, I also think that we're getting closer and closer to a group of promoters out there that one class can be wrote, and I think if it's in a test, if it's 3 or 5 places to start, and people that were going to come run that, I'd rather try it and say we failed than not try it at all. No. But I think we got to step softly, slowly, and Walk into that thing, not jump off the deck.
I get what you're saying, Frankie. In my opinion, I don't think you're going to be able to get every promoter in the entire scene right now, sit them down in a room, and come out with unified set rules for every class. I just don't see that happening, because if a lot of guys are very passionate about their area and what works best, and basically
Correct. Areas are important. And I can tell you from on a local level, it doesn't take very far, an hour away, and things change. And what the group wants. You can have something really like here in Fayette County, it's too heavy and this and that. You drive an hour and 15, one way, and they're 3 times as heavy. The compact class is heavier than what the people in our way are calling yours heavier. I mean, so the youth class is heavier. Um, I don't know.
I get what you're saying, Frankie. So I was thinking about this a little bit today. So I think when it comes to a unified rule set, I think there's either going to have to be one of two things. Either every class is going to be every class has the same set of rules, which I quite frankly don't see that happening at all. Or I think you're going to have to incorporate something like what they did at Gold Rush this year with the Wheelman qualifiers. They had 3 drivers from every big show around. That was basically the closest thing I've seen to unification yet within the Derby sport. So when it comes to that, I think there should be that class or something like that along those lines, at least. That is one set of rules. That there's one set of rules in one class, and then I think you test it out there, and maybe you see how that works. Because who knows? It might work great. It might not work at all.
Well, I can tell you 2 years ago, me, Casey Smith, and a few of the guys ran from South Carolina up and down the East Coast here, inspecting youth cars with the same group, all, continuing on in the bash, continuing on after that, continuing at my shows. The people, the kids, all got used to seeing us, all got used to the way we were doing things. Um, so if there's been a somewhat of a short success story, I think when Casey was on the other day, he showed you 52 cars inspected, 46 or 47 of them had less than 3 infractions. Of those 3 infractions, most of them was door handles and chrome. So the unification, the commonality, the repeatability, consistency works in that of the rule set. Again, the big thing is inspected it in Pennsylvania, the same way you do in Illinois or in Indiana or in Ohio or Kentucky or Tennessee.
So do you think moving forward, in order to get a unified set of rules, do you think you start with the youth class since that already has an established base with the SMW program?
No. I mean, we're going to continue. I mean, in the new youth, as the new youth nomination promoters, I'm asking that we use the rule sets that we have. I haven't made it mandatory this year, but as I move forward and continue to grow the program, if you want in that program, that will be the criteria. And I think we wrote it like you've been a part of that new youth bumper swap. I mean, back and forth. What we almost a month and a half that we went back and forth with those rule sets. A month and a half to come up with one rule set, and a lot of good heads working on it. So you kind of get a little bit of taste of that, but I think we wrote it as something that could be used nationally.
I believe so too, because what I noticed when I was writing those rules, I was writing them in a way where I wanted to make sure that it can apply to every area. You can run the same car in Pennsylvania as you could in Ohio.
Absolutely, 100%.
A lot of the things with them youth cars, that some people disagree with this, but when it comes to a youth car, safety is by far the most important thing.
100%.
When it comes to a youth class, I know this isn't mandatory in a lot of areas, but I don't think a youth class should be a most wanted fine art level build. I think it should at least have a 4-point cage and a door plate on each side. and the battery.
Well, yeah, and if you look at our the cage is pretty good. The gas tank protector is back. That we made it. Again, you got an in and outer door plate. You got a pretty decent cage. People might think that's a little heavy for a youth car, but you get two people in there, and all that's going on in the hitting in that. We don't want to get anybody hurt, passenger or drivers, and safety. That cage and that putting that back there, that tank back where we did, instead of it being all crushed in on somebody, and the battery having to be back there. So I think it's a great set of compact rolls for our youth. And with it being the way that it is on some of the cage stuff, we hope they get a couple, 3 runs out of it, and be able to get to other places and get more seat time out of one car.
I agree with that. And then, so when it comes to the thing that, like, when I was talking to a lot of people about the rule set, because when we were writing them rules, I wanted to get it cleared with as many people as I could possibly think of. So I wrote down a list of everybody who has a youth compact show or is involved with it in any way, and I sent the rules to those people.
Right.
And a lot of people said that it was like they think it's a little bit much, but at the same time, though, is it a little bit much when there's a bumper sitting inside your door and your legs torn in half? Or is it a little bit much when there's a bumper that broke your hip when you're 12 years old? Is it a little bit much at that point? I don't think so. Will it maybe shy some people away? Maybe. But at the same time, though, I'd rather have them people shied away than safe.
100%. Safety is priority one with the youth cars. I can tell you that we take every precaution. If you watch us inspect youth cars, we inspect the belts that they're in there, but that they're working. Hose clamps that are tight, the fuel lines are run where there's pub up, on and on. This year, in the last couple, this year, I believe, this in 2023, the biggest accident we have was batteries on the floor in the passenger seat, which will be 1,000% never allowed again. If you in a car with a passenger, that battery box in any youth class must be behind the seat. We've seen so many people. The injuries that we have had have been on the passenger side, either a gusset or that battery box.
I agree with you. Like, even the first youth show of the year out there at what was that, Whiskey City, I believe, Whiskey City. At
Mark Klein had a bad accident with the battery box in the front. Yeah, I mean, if it was I don't know if they were allowed or not, but an in and outer door plate would have saved that.
Like, it's gotten to the point now where if I'm not allowed to run a door plate, I'm not running. Because
no, I get you.
I've had this conversation with multiple people. Like, I'm there to win the Derby at all costs, but the only thing that I will say, you know what, I'm done, we're checking out,
right,
is when it's not safe, and when I got a bumper or a big hole in my door just hanging out. Yeah, no thanks, guys. I'm throwing in the towel. Call me what you want, but at the end of the day, as long as I can walk home tomorrow, I'll be happy.
I get you. No, 100%, 100% on that one.
Which, especially in the youth class, when it comes down to that stuff, because a lot of they're kids. This is the first time they've ever driven a car. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to
just shift, control, gas. Maybe hit the gas instead of the brake. You don't know. Anything could. Oops, I hit the gas. Oops, I had a door plate there. Kind of the way I feel about it.
Like, they're not doing it intentionally. They're children. You know?
Yes, we forget that. Sometimes you look out there and I'm like it don't even look like a youth heat. But I love the program. I can't wait till in October the final confrontation again comes. The youth Jeffy's Fat Farm Youth Compacts and SMW full size, and we're going to wrap some other heats around them, and but we're going to have one heck of a nationals for all the youth kids in both full size and compact at the final competition October 5th and 6th. Fayette County Fairgrounds, Dunbar, Pennsylvania.
So, how hard is it to get promoters to come together to nominate drivers for the SMW youth championships?
This year, for the first time, I felt it was time to give it a little bit of tooth. And what I mean by a little bit of tooth, in order to be a nominating promoter, number one, you have to be a legitimate business. I am surprised at how many promoters there are out there that are not actually like a business or an LLC or a corporation, or it's almost kind of scary. That and as I dig deeper into the problems between fair boards and taking up going into a show that's been, I don't know, I'm not saying not so successful, but the sticker shock is there when you add insurance and payrolls and things like that, But these other guys, they don't have none of that on their proposal because they're piggybacking the fair boards, and I can't see I am not willing as a promoter. I don't got much or anything, but I am not willing as a promoter to stick my thingy on the chopping block like that. And I don't think, as far as a county-owned facility, I think some fair boards and stuff ought to start to think about and wisen up about that or they're doing business with. It's not even a true entity.
So I thought you had to have insurance to put on a show.
Well, we're going to leave that. We're not going to go down that road. You should. And if you talk to an attorneys, like I won't do it. I won't do a show unless I'm carrying my insurance. So, that's up to those people that are going there and doing them without it and piggybacking it. There's lots of consequences from when and if something happens. So, but that's neither here nor there. That's on them.
So, another one of the hot questions that I've seen asked seem to gain a lot of traction is, like, lately, one of the very, very popular things to talk about is what the future of Demolition Derby is. Could you see Demolition Derby becoming a sport like NASCAR?
Yes and no. He had Butchie on the other day. I think NASCAR. I don't think that the Derby community would want it to be a sport like NASCAR. If I put a template on your car and you're 3 inches off over here or half an inch off over there, here's where I become the bad guy again. But it gave you the specs. This was only 22. You came at 24 and mad because I'm making you cut down to 22 again. If we had a template or we had to be that strict like NASCAR, I think there'd be a lot of mad drivers. To get together and to try to better the sport with some unification and some other things in the future, I probably won't be here to see it. But and I think Butchie Santel touched it. I think something like some of the dirt cars stuff, maybe more so than NASCAR. At this point, I'm all about stepping stones. I would like to go from the bottom rung to the top too, but I believe there's a lot of steps that have to happen in between. And I mean, there's a lot of stars and there's a lot of stuff got to line up for us to get there. But hopefully someday, there's guys like you and again, why we do it and why I do it is maybe there's someday a guy like you can make a living and get at it doing things like that. I'll never say never because, of course, there's things I never thought would happen that happen now. So, um, but it's definitely something to look at, something to listen to. I don't always agree with everything of it, but the conversation's been started.
Do you think that if so hypothetically in a magical world, let's say we got every derby promoter in the entire country together in one room and said we're not leaving until until we all come together about something. We all come together and agree about something. Do you think you'll ever leave that room?
No, in a couple hours we'd all be hungry. So once we agree we're hungry, we take a break and go eat.
So
just to be honest. You ask, I told you.
so do you well going back to the previous question, where do you see derbying at in 10 years?
Boy, I think it'll again. I hope we're laying the legwork for it to continue well on, and um, I hope to see the purses bigger. I hope to see it more organized. Um, I hope to see the drivers being taken care of. We, as promoters, at this point, I believe have out entry feed you guys to death. I'm guilty as charged. Again, I got nothing to hide, but without fans and people in the stands or some sort of big time sponsorship, we have got to create the fun somewhere. Um, I have done nothing but lost money in the last 4 years. Lots of money, lots and lots and lots. Um, it's hard to continue. If anything, I guess I got what they call staying power. Um, and I guess as I continued the last couple of 3 years, I've backed down and I preach about staying in my lane and people staying in their lane, and I've sort of um, took my own advice and I'm doing things I got to do to stick around. Um, Sometimes I like them. Sometimes I hate having to, but it's what if I want to be here. It's the things I got to do.
I get what you're saying, Frankie. So a thing I just thought of is so do you believe that what do you believe the intention of all of most promoters are? Like what do you think their intentions are when they put on a show, and what do you think
I
their
think
intentions are
I
when they
think a
step into the ring?
majority of promoters, especially today, um, talk their heart, their soul. They have great intentions. Um, and I'm this is where I'll I don't think any promoter goes to say I'm going to load this guy and I'm going to load that guy. And oh look, my buddy's here. Let me say this: par for the course, and I can speak for me. I can give two shits who wins the Derby. I don't care if they're from Egypt, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Kentucky, California. People say, "Oh, that's his buddies," or "That's this." You know what? I've been in Derby 40 years. Who don't I know? You know, the whole thing of you go someplace and the drivers say, "Wow, this guy, he does this." They bitch about that. I've been to derbies where people complain. They see me and they have to come over and complain about the promoter that they're there at with. Well, guess what, drivers? You drivers, control what happens, who lives and dies. If you feel like they play favoritism, if you feel like they're letting somebody else go because they're their buddies, if you feel like you getting every time you go there, you get screwed or this, that, and the other, I have to ask, why do you continue to support that promoter? I'll go back to that same show and that same guy. that is telling me how bad that guy is back there again, supporting him and telling me how great a job I did, but it hasn't ran one of my derbies yet. I don't understand it. If it's that way and you feel that way, you drivers control who lives and dies. If you guys continue to support all the things that you don't like, including me, if you think I'm the worst promoter or that I'm out there to get you, I probably wouldn't run my shows. Amen. But I can tell you, and anybody that knows me, that hardcore comes to do a job. And we do it to the best of our abilities. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Matter of fact, let me go back to Stumble Shivitz. Tell Shivitz I went back and I looked and I owe him about 11 seconds. I'm not perfect. But we do the best we can. I have no reason to go there and tell a guy, I didn't get in line today to cut him apart. Again, it's the cards that the drivers deal us. They deal the cards. We play the hand. And I expect a driver, as from the seat, to push it, to bring the best car they can. Now, as a driver, understand, and as a driver, here's what when I was a driver. Do you know as a driver who I have to please? Me. I built it. I bought it. I had the rust in my eye. My arms look like a junkie from all the burns. I got the hot shoe that went down my foot. I'm the one got mud in my eye and my ear from underneath. I'm the one fell asleep working on it. As a driver, you only have you to be happy with, to make happy. As a promoter, you've got fans, you've got a venue, you've got a fair board, you've got the cheerleaders. I call them cheerleaders. It's Freebie's mom wanting Freebie to win. Which I call them cheerleaders because they are, and they should want their person to win. And if they think we screwed them, they're going to yell and cuss at us, and that's okay too, because that's what cheerleaders do. They're there for their fans. And when at the Browns game, and when if the Steelers, if someone makes a bad call or they think that they boo and hiss, that's what cheerleaders do. That's what their fans do. I don't take that personal, because in the bottom line, they really don't know that guy really was holding. He really did hold that linebacker. The guy maybe don't see it. So, and a lot of times, and I talk about perception, interpretation, and those three things that I talk about: interpretation, perception, and opinion. There's a lot of times, again, I'll go use a hump plate. When we come in, and is a 22-inch hump plate going to make a difference on it than a 20? Probably not. But if we let it go, by the time it gets to Facebook, it was a foot longer. Or if we cut it, if we make them cut it, well, we're being picky, and my car's on the lift too long. Well, and then people get, why did my car take an hour and a half inspection? And that guy, when you lift up a car and there's no body bolts touch, or the welds aren't that good, or the frame's not glistening black like it's been on a rotisserie, there's got the guy. The difference in your car and theirs is you had 25 things to look at. That other car had 125 things to look at. And once I looked at this, and now you're looking through paint, you're looking through this, you're looking through that, scratching here, pointing in there, the bend points, checking in that, where these bend. And sometimes you're like, that's plated. And you can see it, but they'll still tell you it ain't. They're like, I'm looking at it. I'm touching it. It's there. Oh no. It's like crazy. Like, really, it's there. Oh, I didn't know that was there. I bought this car in Ohio. So I didn't know that guy did that. Well, it happens. I understand it.
I get you. So that kind of brings us to another point is, do you think drivers want a fair inspection, or do you think they want an inspection?
I think drivers say they want a fair inspection. I think drivers want to have the car that they ran a class or two above bring it down and run into lower classes. That's what I think. They want it to be fair as long as they have the advantage. Um, I say people in the inspection line, I'm here to make things fair. I'm not here to make friends. So that's what inspectors do. A hard part about inspection, I'll go back a little bit, inspection is when a car comes that hasn't been built to your rule set. One of the hardest things I think as a promoter we face. Um, there are, do you give and take, or does it have to be 100%? No down legs. Well, this guy got a down leg. So now where it went through the frame, we've made him cut it off. But when you walk by the car, and you look in there, what do you see?
A down leg.
Down leg. Those guys let him have down legs. Look. Well, wait a minute. But they didn't see underneath the car where we made him cut it, where it no longer touches the frame. You know what I mean? So back to perception or interpretation. I'm not saying we don't miss things. Oh, that car's tilted. I could see it from the stands, or that car's plated, or this one's got that, or that one has this. Or there's 95.8% of the time when that happens, if you come and talk to me or talk to us like a civil human being, I assure you there's something that I'm going to tell you that you didn't know, and there might be something you're going to tell me I don't know, and together we're going to both have a better understanding of the situation, and probably understand each other a lot more than assuming.
I agree with you, Frankie. One of the things that I've noticed, especially this year, is I believe that there should only be two types of inspection. So the first one would be the big show inspection. When you're running for $10,000 or $8,000, or when you're running for a nice sum of money, I believe every car should be exactly equal in the exact same way, because that's a lot of path, that's a lot of risk the promoter takes. But when it comes to a county fair, let's be honest, county fairs, you guys need the car count. So, and I believe that there's, when you have certain cars built for different sets of rules, but they're somewhat similar in different areas. One has more here where the other has more here.
Agreed.
I believe from the inspector's view for the county fair, when it's his job to get the car count, let's say you have 8 cars show up and you load 4 of them, but at the same time, the other 4, they were similar, but they weren't the exact same, because this one had a little more here, but not as much there. I believe when it comes to that, you have to find the common ground, because at the end of the day, when you have a car that you have like probably at least $30,000 in, and you want to, and the promoter wants you to cut it to shreds for $1,000, it's stupid. It makes no sense.
I understand. I do get it. It's hard. It's one of the toughest things you face when you cut somebody apart. Did you cut them too much? Didn't you cut them enough? The hard part is you don't know till after the derby starts. They hit you, they make a hit and the bumper falls off, or they make a hit and it pushes the other guy's bumper back to the radiator core support. Well, then you figure out if you cut him enough or didn't cut him. I mean, so don't get me wrong. Again, it's an opinion. It's a perception. We do our best to try to make those cars, like you said, this guy got 2 inches here, you got 3 over there, so you're still an inch better. But we're held to such a high, expectation that people don't think of that. They don't realize that. I've been in inspections, right? 18 cars and only 1 car built to my rule set. That's hard. It's hard to do. It's hard to make them all equal. So, I mean, one thing I felt as a driver, I never had the hardest car, but I always had, like Pete said the other day, I got in and you flip that switch. I don't care what car I was in or what rule set we had. My advantage was me in the end of the day. So I still today believe that.
I can agree with
I
that.
still believe. We'll go back to. I got to tell my wheelbarrow story. Um, I told everybody. Had a meeting years ago here. I was disqualified. I was protested from the minivan class, and was in the full size class. I run the heat, won the heat and the feature. A guy in the minivans protested me. I had one where the seam behind in a wagon from the rear wheel well to the tailgate blew out. I had one 2x3 patch in there, and I wish I had time to show you the pictures. But if not, somebody you get with me, I'll show them to you because I still got them. Ran a heat and a feature like that, and they disqualified me afterwards. Then we had a meeting saying about the cars, and we were going to 80s and newer in the middle of the season. I stood up and I told them, guys, if Saturday you said we're going to smash wheelbarrows, my wheelbarrow would be better than your wheelbarrow. And facts, the cream will rise if it's wheelbarrows, if it's beer cans, if it's $60,000 wagons. It is what it is. It's always been that way. That's the one thing that hasn't changed about them, the Demolition Derby. The ones that put the time, the money, and the effort will always be the ones that put the time, the money, and the effort, and they will always be the ones that everybody complains about because the other ones didn't put the time, the money, and the effort into it.
And so on the TikTok stream, there's a few comments saying buddies and names is what's ruining the sports, or basically friends letting friends do what they want is ruining the sport.
It's as false as I could possibly tell you. And I'm going to speak for me. I'm harder on my friends or people that I do know to come through because I know how bad I'm going to be scrutinized at the end of the day. I'm going to be tougher on you than I am anybody.
Oh, 100%.
And again, if people see that happening and they continue to go back and support it, guess what? It will never end. It will never end. You go back, and as long as there's cars and there's people, nothing will change. So you drivers as a whole are the magic ingredients. Guess what? If you don't support that and you don't go back where they're showing favoritism or they're letting their buddies do this or letting their buddies do that, then they'll continue to happen. You go somewhere else, don't show up. Guess what? The promoter will change. Something will change. Something will get done. And hopefully you guys get someone that's reputable and it's someone that's going to follow the rules to the best of their abilities and do the things as right as they possibly can.
I completely agree. So this past summer, I've ran almost everywhere on the entire East Coast, upper East Coast, I should say. We never really went down south. But the thing that I can 100% say is that every time I have been treated, in my opinion, unfairly, it was by my own friends.
Right.
Call me crazy. So
right.
The beginning of the year, the first show, we went down to Palmetto, and I didn't know anybody there. I knew Yank because he ran Dead Man. I ran with him the year before, and he tried to kill me in a hearse. That's all. Yeah. That's the only thing I knew from Palmetto. I got treated, I believe, one of the fairest I've ever been treated there. But fast forward a little bit, I go down there to Butler with the Rutherfords. I love the Rutherfords to death. That's not where this is going. Where this is going is I was treated more unfair in that inspection because I'm friends with them.
Right.
Than I have anywhere else. And I've been treated worse at Dead Man inspections than anywhere else because I'm friends with everybody.
Let's talk about a Jonathan Howman compact inspection.
Oh, I love it.
Baby. I always watched you just shake your head and back to the drawing board with these things. The torch and the sparks is flying. But Jonathan, you know what? Jonathan Howman loves you. And he thinks this, that. But you know what? You're just another brick in the wall when you come through inspection. There's no friends. There's no enemies. You understand that? And I how many times have I ate your ass for trying to be bag sanding? I look at you and I pick it up. It's time. Friend or
So,
foe, man. I got none. I have to, when I'm on the wall or I'm doing a job, people can say what they want. They can think what they want. Again, it's perception or opinion. But the
oh,
facts are, I don't care who wins, and I'm harder on my. If you're my friend and you come to my derby, be known I'm going to be harder on you than anybody else.
like so. Let's go back to John for a little bit. So the first time I ever ran for John, I had a W body that was from the year before, and like I'm not gonna
Oh
lie to
my,
you, it was a little overdone, you know.
yeah.
Just a little bit, you know, a little well here, a little well there, you know.
He could
Nothing.
inspect those cars blindfolded.
So, anyways, John loaded me. The first time I ever ran for him, John loaded me.
Amen.
But like at the same time, though, I didn't really know the guy, but it
Right.
was one of them things where I think no, this is something that I don't think anybody does. Is do you ever just look back on yourself? That night, I ain't gonna lie to you. I had way too many fixture plates. My tank protector was way too wide, and it was a half an hour before the show started. I did not have enough time to fix it. Now, at the time, was I mad? Yes, I was furious. I just drove 3 hours and I got loaded. At the
Right.
same time, though, I
Same time, you
understood
showed up a
why.
half hour with things that you probably, if you'd have read the rules, and you'd probably figured out that, hey, those things aren't right, and maybe I should have fixed them at home before I got there.
In my defense, I was like 12, so like you know, it's one of them things, Frankie.
I get you.
So it's going off of stuff like that. That every time I've been loaded, 90% of the time, it was justified. I don't think I've ever been loaded for nothing.
Sure.
But
Again, I don't think there's promoters that go to load people or to go to cut people up. Um, Again, it's a reaction to a driver's actions. I don't go there. Oh man, he'll cool. I don't. This here car 26, 27's coming up. Let's make him cut. Where do people get that? Now I get in there and he got the. I see grinder marks and bend points. I see this or the frame looks maybe not has look a little fat rolly look to it in certain areas, you know, than others. And all right, well, you know, then we find something. You know, all right, well, you that was a card you played. Now you dealt it to me. Now I have to play it. Now, how do I play it? Do I double down? What do I do here with it? But again, it's when promoters and inspectors in inspection line, again, it's a reaction to an action, a driver's actions. Um, you want to make it a better place? Don't put the plate. Don't put the grinder marks. Don't paint the frame, 6 inches thick, look like a dipped on a rotisserie. I mean, 70s Chevelle. I've seen 70s Chevelle frames in restoration that aren't as nice as some of these frames. I mean, so.
I think like a lot of when it comes to derby drivers and when it comes to stuff like that, it's you can take this even out of derbying. Nobody wants to actually look back and look at themselves in a lot of situations.
Sure.
Because I don't know what it is about derbying, but something about it. I'm guilty of this too. It makes you act on emotion very easily.
Well, I know from getting in a car and you Pete and some other people talk about flipping that switch. I know myself included. I'm as laid back as they get. But when I get in that car and I do flip that switch, it's a little different Frankie. It's a little different Freebie. It's a little different Casey Smith. It's a little different Pete Hansen. I try not to run to the arena as soon as the guy gets out of the car. I try, somebody's upset. I try to get, a few minutes because being in the seat, I know, man, I'm in a little different place and give that guy a minute to catch his breath and maybe come back down. And in the end, you give him a few minutes. When the Lovejoy at that one, he come up out of there, I'm hot, mad, and I get it. But after the fact and we talk, it's all good. I mean, things happen. It's in the heat of the moment. So if you're an official and you can't take you ain't got the skin of a Tyrannosaurus Rex or something, one of them dinosaurs, it ain't for you.
like even going off of that, I think a lot of times that this is something that I've personally experienced is like a lot dealing with a lot of these inspectors and a lot of people like that. Everybody, it seems in a way, people want to take things personally. And what I mean by this is everybody thinks you're going there. Like when I'm in inspection lines, it doesn't feel like they're inspecting the car. It feels like they're inspecting me in a lot of the cases, which I'm okay with that. I have a loud mouth and I talk on the internet a lot. I kind of expected this to come along with it. But where I'm actually going with this is so when guys like we'll just take Pete for a fine example. Pete is a great example of this. Pete does everything to the maximum ability. Pete,
everything, and I mean everything.
If Pete can spend 10 grand on headers to make his car harder, he's going to spend 10 grand on headers to make his car harder.
Agreed.
But the problem with that is that not a lot of people are willing to go like Pete. Not a lot of people are willing to do that. So when Pete does do that, and when Pete shows up to a lot of events, people don't know what to think. They almost get like offended or appalled by it in a way. And Pete's not trying to do that to like be rude to the inspector or do anything like that. Pete is doing that because that is how Pete is. That's part of the reasons why Pete's so successful and has in business and the junkyard and everything. Because Pete is willing that he'll go out and spend a month in a shop, not talk to anybody, just stay in the shop for a strict month so that he can succeed in the Derby. Pete is willing to do that. And I think a lot of people, they don't know how to react to that when they see guys pour their heart and souls into these cars, and then they run against people that don't.
I'll get a little bit of back to it. I think there's a lot of people that pour their heart and souls into them. But is that heart and soul 100 hours? Or is that heart and soul 400, 500, 600 hours and 30,000? Or is it 100 hours and 5,000? It's motorsports. Unfortunately, in that form, it's motorsports. The more you spend, the faster you go, the better it is. All those things that are this nasty thing we call motorsports. Look at NASCAR. Look at the World of Outlaws. Look at the sprint cars. If they can't replace the amount of money they got in motors, if it wasn't for sponsors and all the things that they got and all that, and even at that point, in NASCAR now you can't have one all year because $1.5 million just isn't enough to cut it. So now they got to have 5 or 7, 8 of them for $1.5 million to get through. So people say it's money, it's this, it's motorsports, but I'd rather see a guy that maybe was in, let's say, a dominator class and not be that successful, go down to a light weld warrior and be competitive. Or there's guys in a light weld warrior that I think probably would do better in a motor swap. It's when they put what they believe their heart and soul in, and that's 100 hours and a couple grand. When they go against the other cars that have 3 times the amount of work and 3 times the amount of money, that they're unsuccessful, that they ask themselves, well, I worked hard. I did all I could do. But that's not all that could have been done. So that's where the problem lies. So again, find your lane, stay in it, be successful in it. Then move up from there. The next step in buying pieces, buying parts, till you get to that Blizzard Bash or the Gold Rush or these Bash for Cash, these big shows that I know if I was still running and I was still younger, those would be my goals. As I went through the fairs and then the bigger shows, and I think you're on a path like that. I mean, you've had your share of some. You run the youth stuff. You've run some fairs, and I mean, it's next steps. What's the next step? The next rung on the ladder is the next step.
I think going back to what you said a little bit ago, there's guys that are going to do whatever it takes to win, and that they don't say there's got here's well, let me rephrase this. There are guys that say when they're, let's say they're cutting something, let's say they're doing a tank protector, they get it in there, and I'm like yeah, that's good enough. And then there's the guys that look at that and they overthink it for an hour and they redesign the entire thing just so it's perfect. There's the different types of guys, and the good enough guys, it's, I hate to say it, but it's hard to compete with the guys that are willing to go redo everything only for the reason so it is perfect. Because that when even when it comes to stuff like door strapping, if a guy is willing to make sure the door strapping looks good, can you imagine what else is going on in there compared to the guy that says, it's welded?
I'll go back to a Pete Hansen car, a Jonathan Howman car, a Corey Roman, or some of these other guys. The weld from left to right are the same. The angles are perfect. All those things. I mean, when you talk about attention to detail and the way that the wires are run, when people talk about in inspection, why did I didn't scope this one or you scope that one or not this, but I mean, you can look at a color and tell. Well, I mean, this car doesn't look like it, have much of anything done, or you need to continue to look, or hey, you give it a good once over. I didn't see anything that caught my eye. Or I mean, it's just a good clean build, or there's some that, wow, I mean, this guy, when you see those bars are perfect, and this is the perfect, and that is perfect, you better look some more to add more stuff. So when people say we inspect the driver, not the car, it's probably because that driver, again, the way it's not the guy that we over inspect in the rusty car that didn't do the body mount bolts that he could have. It's the guy that has the painted frame and that has all the nuts and bolts and all the stuff in its right place and things, and maybe even has a history. What about a guy that's been loaded at 5 or 6 different shows? Should we look at him harder than we do any of the others? Or am I being a bad guy? Huh? Am I being mean and not have no common sense? Huh? I don't got no common sense. Right?
Going off of that, like you bring up a great point when it's people, do you inspect the drivers or the cars more? I think here's the way I see it. I believe that, well, yes, you just brought up a great point of if you got a car that looks perfect compared to a car that doesn't, the guy that has the perfect car is obviously going to have, that shows that he has a lot more time and energy invested than the other guys. Therefore, he's probably willing to do some extra stuff to help him win. Yes. But when it comes to inspecting the drivers, not the cars, I think it all depends on the situation. Sometimes people very well do inspect the drivers, not the cars. That's a simple fact of it all. But other times, I believe it's the situation of it all. I'll take this back to Butler. Like I said, Rutherford's great people, love them to death. Went to Blizzard Bash with them. They did not.
Listen, common sense. You shouldn't have put a bumper in the back of your car. Stop. That's not, we us promoters don't have common sense. Let's take a Chevy bumper and weld it in the back of the car. That's not common sense. That doesn't make sense, freebie. Put the right cage. Aren't you tired of cutting up cages and pieces and parts? When will you learn? Huh? I'm just again, I said I'd be honest. I'm being honest. People, I may not get another driver. People will probably hate me, whatever. But I'm honest. I'm telling you, those are the things that drive us promoters crazy.
We'll get to that.
I'm on Rutherford's side. Don't get rid of the bumper and put a bar behind the seat like you're supposed to.
We'll get to that part in a minute, Frankie. So
Right? I was there. Remember?
that's not where I was going with that.
All right.
So our team, that night, the way I saw it, we got one of the tougher inspections. However, was it justified? I can see it. Do I believe that the tech crews did their best to keep it a fair between everybody? I do. However, I believe that part that not a lot of people bring into consideration when they're talking about they inspected the drivers and not the cars and not the drivers is what is the peanut gallery saying? What are the fans saying on the sidelines? What is the dude that's just running his mouth and will not go away? What is that guy doing that's going to persuade everything? What is his group of people doing that's going to persuade everything? When we went down to Butler, there was a group, loved them to death before it, kind of still like them guys now. But for some reason, when we showed up there, it was a side of them I've never seen. Is that because they dislike me as a person? No. It's because when push comes to shove, we have to compete tonight. We're going to go out there on the track. The best man's going to win.
I've seen something on, what was it? There's been something floating around. You're my friend until you become my competition.
Exactly. Like that night, we were friends until it got down or became competition, and we saw the side.
But I think on a bigger level, you shut your hole and compete, and afterwards you get out, win, lose, or draw, and you shake the man's hand. And if you did lose, you get back and do better. I for years ran against who I think is one of the best derby car drivers in the country when I was going, and his name is Danny Trent. I the best. But I never gave up. I never quit trying. I never quit trying to get better. Did I complain? Oh, Danny, man, I wish Danny had a shifter. Danny had gear. Danny had this. Look at that nice wagon. Look at the tires. What's that thing he's shifting? Why did he hit me twice before I could move? Oh, he got gear. Why did my lease bring? Oh, he got new ones. Oh, I need them too. So talk about evolving and competing, which I think is another thing. In today's world, you put out a driver's list, and I ain't going. Oh, that guy's gonna be there. Oh, they got the numbers. Let me use Jaeger bombs. I had a terrible year this year. Biggest thing I heard, nobody wanted to compete because Jaegers are there and they got numbers. Well, guess what? I don't know if it was that or nobody was willing to compete. Nobody was willing to hit Ricky or hit Justin. I watched Justin Yeager hit Ricky Yeager one shot and push his bumper to his header. Now that was Justin was able to do that. Are the other cars on there? Absolutely. If they would have hit him, they would have done it, been able to do it too. But in turn, are you willing to die on the hill? Are you willing to compete? Are you willing to lay it all on the line? I think today people are a little softer. I'd rather be the big fish in a little pond. I'd rather have more than the other ones. I have people that said I won't come to hardcore because you guys inspect cars and it's hard to win. I was like, well, what did we do wrong? A guy told me I'll never go back to hardcore again. That's the two things he told me. And I asked my crew and I went back to him and I said, what can we do to fix that? And they're like, so when people say they want fair, to a point, they want fair, but they'd rather have more than the other one. 100%. Fair, being as fair as I possibly can, hasn't been the greatest experience for me. There are times I went and I've seen, and I scratch my head. Well, man, I see it, and they're getting away with this, and they're getting away with that. And people, well, they go there because they can get away with it. But if you're getting away with that, what is the next person getting away with? And what's the next person getting away with? Then well, I'm doing it, but he's doing it. And ultimate goals. You want to talk about ultimate goals in Demolition Derby? You to pick up a hardcore rule set from anywhere in the country, read it, come to my show and be competitive. Goals, I said. Maybe I'm not there yet. I'm working towards that. Here's the good one I hear. Oh, do you have to go watch a derby before you're running it so that you know what you can and can't get away with? How good is inspection? How bad is inspection? Why is that?
Because there's
Because there is. I get you. I know the answer. You don't have to answer. There's things you can get there. I want to know what I can get away with. I know what I can't.
which, like, when it comes to that, so this is how, this is how I build 90% of my cars. If it's a big, like, if I'm building for the Bash, or if I'm building for Buried Alive, or if I'm building for one of them big shows, this is how I and 90% of other people build their cars. We look at the rules, we read every square inch of them, we acknowledge them, and then we just start building our derby car. And then when we get there, we cut it. That's how the game goes, in my eyes at least. Now, when it goes with that thinking, is that the best thinking for a unified rule set? Probably not. But at the same time, though, you said this best a little bit ago. I am building this car. This is my car. I am building this car to win this show or compete to the best of my abilities. Why am I going to skip out on any small little detail at all? Why am I not going to build it to the best of my abilities so that it gives me the best chances of succeeding?
Okay.
When it's bringing this back to the point of a unified rule set is it's going to be hard because a lot of guys build derby cars to win the derby. Let's be honest, it's derby, it's motorsports. Everybody is cheating. Even if you say you're not cheating, you're doing something.
Well, you're trying. I mean, there's some things. I mean, what is cheating or what isn't cheating? Again, as a promoter and coming from the seat, I expect everyone to push it. There's things I see, boy, that's a great idea, but and here's I say wiggle room and no zigzag. Okay, I'm willing to wiggle, but if there is something that you bring that gives you a clearly distinctive and way advantage that zigzags your car than the other ones. And I think me and you had this conversation, right, at the Bash one year. And I showed you the points. And I mean, it's okay that you know two other people did it, but they did it way differently. They wiggled. You zigzagged. And I think you get that.
My car was not overdone that year.
Listen,
Let's get that out of the way.
Your bars to your dust cover protector zigzagged. There were others that wiggled, but yours zigzagged. So there's an instance where some people did the same thing you did, and let's say they used the same size rod that was factory or that was this, where some people had to go to 1/2 inch or 3/4. Is it the same but different?
Listen, that car at the Bash that year,
I'm picking on you. We picked. Listen, you learned a valuable lesson that day. Yeah, your dad's still mad at us over that one.
You know, but going off of that, like, to be honest with you guys, like, I think there's a certain ego that drivers and inspectors have that it just does not mesh. Like in that tech line, I thought I was going to get loaded. I ain't going to lie to you that night.
Oh, you were close. We were discussing it.
Well, would have been the first time of my life. So I think going in that tech inspection line, I knew that I pushed the car to the very strengths of the rules.
Right.
But one thing that I did that night that I try to do every night when I do that and I build a fresh car like that is I try to maintain that understanding of I did this. I know I did this. I am not surprised with the consequences that may follow. But it gets to the point, you know, especially with that car, there was a few things.
Sorry, I'm trying to get dressed to head out of here.
Oh, you're all
well, I'm talking to you too. So
when it comes to that car that night, I did stuff, but the problem with that car, which I can I still don't agree with saying I could have gotten loaded. I still don't agree with that, but I do believe that there was stuff that I pushed that Not everybody else did. People push stuff, but I did everything. Like everybody, like if there's like, let's say there's 3 things to push. Most people only did 1, maybe 2. I did 4, which
Right.
it was in my defense. It was for the bash, okay. And I think when you build for a show like the bash, or you build for one of the big high ticket, big venues and national events, I feel the duty, and I guarantee a lot of other people do, that you have to leave it all out on the track. Leave no stone unturned.
Let me say, you being a little ahead of the game, it being a youth program, as from the youth standpoint, I think there'll be a time and a place for you to zigzag and push and do all that. But for right now, in that youth thing, we need to keep it to a small roar, if you will. Michelle, will you hold this while I get hold that on me while I get
I agree with that.
Getting dressed to go meet a fair board. You know, like Derby's never done here. 24/7, 365, 8 days a week. Eat it, breathe it, drink it, swallow it, shit it, poop it, breathe it, cough it. I do it all.
I think
Get dressed. We need this show too. Say, talk to Michelle a minute while I put my sock on.
Oh Lord.
What up, Michelle? How you doing?
Nothing. Listening to you cuckoos.
So going back to that, do you think they had any right to consider loading me that night? Me personally, I still don't see it.
Absolutely.
What?
It's a biased perspective, you guys. You heard it here first. They inspect the driver, not the cars. It's no different than anybody. They're all the same. Everybody hates Derby drivers. Blah blah blah. That's
blah blah blah. What are some of the other bad things that the drivers wanted to say about inspecting the people, the car, my friends? All falsities. All falsities. I'm not saying it don't happen, but I'm telling you.
Oh man.
What
time is it?
It
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Now that you mentioned that, I wanted to finish up on that point I left off on a little bit ago. Going back to inspecting the drivers and not the cars, but I think no promoter wants to I don't think any promoter that says I'm gonna have a big show, I'm gonna have a Derby. I don't think any promoter goes there with the goal to say, you know what, I'm gonna target this guy. This guy is gonna have a terrible time at my show. I don't think anybody has ever done that.
No, I don't believe so.
But I think there's a lot of things that influence it. Going back to the Butler situation, there was a group of people that definitely influenced the situation. Am I blaming them? No. Do I dislike them because of it? No. It's Derby. They wanted to win. I wanted to win. It's Derby. We both wanted to get there in a different way.
Right.
And then I think the noise that people get from, like, here's a prime example. Pete ran No Mercy this year. Jacob and TJ were telling me months afterwards how people are still complaining about that night. Did Pete do anything wrong? No. Did he pass inspection? Yes. Did he win fair and square? Yes. But people are still complaining about it. And I think stuff like that and the complaining of the crowd influences promoters' decisions and drivers' decisions more than anything else.
I don't listen to the crowd because there's a lot of bleacher creatures up there that think they're officials.
Somebody asked an interesting question, Frankie. They asked, why does a wagon get inspected more than a sedan?
I don't know that to be the case. Because I would say, if I was to guess, a wagon empty shell is $7,000, and it probably has everything you could possibly do done to it. So there you are. I would say that's the culprit.
I think, I think that one thing that a lot of people need to do when, like, if before you get mad and start cussing out promoters and start ranting on Facebook, look at it from the promoters' perspective.
Come talk to me like a human.
Did they have
Come talk to me.
because when I'm not gonna lie, I've been guilty of this, but my mom would have never really let me post anything on Facebook when I'm mad. So there's been times where I've been very angry in the inspection line. However, I leave it in the inspection line. Granted, when I get back to the truck and I'm cutting, I might, say some things that I'm probably not proud of later on. But I think this brings us back to the point of when you're in the moment and you're just heated. It's hard to control exactly what you want and need to say at the same time because something about derbying makes you just act illogically. There's no other way to say it. Do you agree with that, Frankie?
Yeah, I tried to. You tried to be respectful to a point. Some guys, they just want to push your buttons and continue to push your buttons and continue and continue. And again, my hat's off to all you inspectors out there busting your asses in those inspection lines. You're a special kind of guy. I put out a little help wanted sign. There's so many people that have stuff to say on Facebook and that have all the answers and that can officiate from 250 yards. But for some reason, they don't want to officiate on Facebook. They don't want to get on the real side. I can assure you, if you've never been, that officiating, working with a real crew in derbying and doing it for real will change your mind. It will change your whole thinking and outlook of promoters and inspectors.
I completely agree because one thing not a lot of people have ever done is when you're sitting in an inspection line looking at cars for 10 hours a day, 8 hours a day, sun up till the derby starts.
Vegas. I was part of the Vegas. We were there from 7 a.m. to midnight.
You missed.
I've been in. I've worked the Dent show. I've worked I've worked Croucher's big derbies. Iron City. I've been Destruction Productions, Carrollton, Schumann, Lovejoy's. All those. All those guys I've been part of and worked with. Toby Hiley. Matter of fact, I DQ'd Toby Hiley one day years and years ago. So, but yeah, it happens.
Like when you're inspecting a car. When here's prime example at the Bash this year. They inspected team cars relentlessly all day long to the point where you miss things because you
get exhausted.
You get exhausted.
You're ate up.
Right when you get exhausted, you still have a lot more cars to go. So then you have to start getting them through faster so the show starts on time. There's a lot of variables that go into missing something. Nobody just says, "Oh, I didn't see that." No,
100%. I think I went to a show where we told somebody you can't have DP. We lifted the hood. If there were 75 cars there, we lifted the hood on 74 of them. Guys late, left, came back, left, came back, whatever reason, came in. We didn't lift the hood. After the derby, I look in, he's got a DP. God, shoot us, man. And especially, I got I got my ass, ate over it, but it's true. We lifted the hood on 74 of them. The one we didn't had a DP. Go fish. So
no matter what, it's very hard for all promoters and all inspection lines that run for 12 hours a day to not miss anything. They're human. They miss things.
Sure,
You were
sure
late
we
to
do.
work one time. Does that mean you should be fired immediately? No. It's an honest mistake. People try to hold these promoters and these officials to these godlike standards that just does not make sense.
Right. And the hard part is I'm okay with drivers pushing it. Be okay with us pushing back. You come to my show because I give fix a plates on a car that after it's ran. You bring a car to my show, you bring it off the trailer, you make a few bumps and load it back up so you can get fix a plates. Am I mad at you? Should I be?
You lose them.
When I come back and I push back and you say, oh, it's this, it's personal, it's that, it's blah, blah, blah. You can't, that no longer can do that. Or I take fix the plates away, or, oh, you're picking on me. Wait, I didn't bitch and complain, because you know why? If I was a driver and that was the thing, I would have done it too. So I'm not mad at you. But the thing is, I've been on your side. You haven't been on mine. As a driver, I don't have a problem with it.
I get you. And I'm not going to lie to you, as a driver going through an inspection line, it's very, very easy to take things personally in an inspection line.
Sure. But it really isn't.
I'm not saying I don't think. Oh, I'm not gonna lie to you. Up until not too long ago, I finally realized they're not doing this to hurt me or hinder me in any way. It's so that they're doing this to protect themselves and so that the show runs fair and properly.
As fair as it can be. I mean, or to their possibilities. I think a lot of things go wrong too when the guy that's bringing the car through inspection is smarter and knows more than the guy looking at it. You get into some instances in some places, in some cases. I think that's very, very true.
Which I agree with that, but I think I don't truly believe that in my circumstance and most of the shows that I have ran, that I have ever been inspected because of who I am. I believe logically, looking at my car compared to other people's cars, it makes sense why. Here's a prime example of this. Almost every time I have ever went through a Dead Man Compact inspection, I had the longest list and the longest inspection time. Right. Now, is that justified? Because it's easy to just sit here and say they hate me, they don't want to see me win their show, and all this stuff. It's easy to do that. But every time I truly sit back and I think about it logically, was their actions justified? Was there a reason to keep me in an inspection line for an hour? Yes, there it was. 100% was, because they know. I was told this at Dead Man. They said if we don't look at your car and figure out almost everything you've done on this thing, then it's gonna bite us so hard you won't even understand it. Which promoted derbies, TJ has said that. I've talked to TJ about this, which we're having him on tomorrow. I'm going to bring this up with him. Becoming a derby promoter, he said it has been a great thing and it has been a terrible thing because people, they hate him for it that used to love him, and people love him that used to hate him. Do you find that to be true, Frankie?
Oh yeah. People, they create their own opinion of you but I hate when people create their own opinion on falsehoods. Like I said, it's 2 inches too long. By the time it hits Facebook, it was 6 inches and a half inch thicker than everybody else's. That's not true. And 99% of the time, it's not true. But a lot of people, the first thing somebody gets on Facebook, oh, they loaded me. Oh, that's bullshit. Oh, why? Oh, what's this? Well, why? Well, they don't, why you got loaded. If you got loaded, and then apparently you did something wrong, or I mean, but it's always, oh, that's bullshit. Is it? How do they know that it's bullshit when they don't even know the circumstances? How can they say that? Oh, all the guy says, I went, oh, they loaded me. Oh, that's bullshit. Well, how do you know? Maybe he had a D9 blade behind the bumper. How do you know? How do you know why they loaded it? I mean, it's just always, I don't know. But again, the expectations of a promoter. Why isn't it okay that a promoter have expectations of the drivers? I go to the end of the earth for what I call hardcore drivers. Number one, I love my drivers. I love them to death. I love them all. I love the ones that don't like me. I love the ones that hate me even more. I like them. I like the ones who like me. They don't understand. Without them, I'm nothing. But I'm here again. I'm here to do a job, and I'm here to make it as fair as I possibly can within my capabilities. By no means am I perfect. I make mistakes. I've made bad calls over the years, over the times. 100%.
I agree. And like one thing that this just popped into my head a little bit ago. So one thing that I think that inspectors and promoters really, I think one thing that really was one of the main problems that a lot of people have, and that starts a lot of hatred and a lot of the hatred between groups, is how people communicate and perceive things. Like
Perception.
Going back to a little. What's that?
Perception. One of my words.
Going back to it, I've been loaded a few times. I'll use this as a prime example. I think it would have been last year. I ran a show for Fair Derby. They loaded me because I had a 2x2 strut on an 03. At the time, I was very angry at the time because there was like 3 cars there. So I kind of, the way I looked at the situation then was because I was in the moment, and basically I got told, go screw yourself, you're not allowed to derby. That's how I perceived the situation then. Looking back on it now, do I believe that was the best way to look at that situation? No. Do I believe that my car was a little bit out of the bounds compared to the other cars when it comes to that area? It could be argued. At the time, in his eyes, I guess it was. Does that make how I reacted to that and my view towards that promoter any differently now? I think it should, because I think what I try to do is you always have to look back at the situations where you could have been wrong or where you got loaded and look at how it was perceived. Was the call wrong? Could have been argued, yes, with me getting loaded. However, the reason that I did not like the situation the most is because how it was treated, how I was treated. If I show up and you load me, fine by me. But it's the thing that I think I speak, this is for me personally, is when drivers go and they're not treated with any respect at all, and they're treated like they're belittled, that's when I think drivers get hurt the most, and that's why drivers hate the promoters the most. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, such as, when I talk about an inspector, you got some that are real good at catching things, but can't talk. You got some that are okay at catching things, but just have a way with words. When some people say attitude, and some people just come off wrong. Some people, the tone, the demeanor. Look at, man, that guy got a bad attitude. You ain't even spoke to him. It happens. I mean, you're human. It's human. You people act differently. Some people are hard. Some people are soft. Some people understand or want to work with you. Some people test you, put the pressure on you, see if you break. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. And at all times, try your damnedest to keep the utmost respectfulness to the driver, because there's going to be an after. There's going to be a part. There's an after. There's an aftermath, and people are watching. And people are like, I watched that guy yell and scream at him, and he didn't. You know, um, but as I say that, remember, guys, at some point we are human. My most viral video is of me coming out of a um, booth, because I have issues or this and that. But um, one thing as a promoter, as the head guy, um, my people work too hard, and I don't pay them enough to have to deal with those things. If somebody needs yelled at or screamed at, I'm that guy. Come yell and scream at me. I'm that umbrella, and I will die on the hill for my people. If somebody has to be disrespected and that's what you feel you got to do, come to me. Don't do it to my people. Because again, I will die on the hill for them.
I agree with that. That's the best way to put that.
Amen.
And going back to the thing with perception, it's drivers spend all this money and they spend all this time. So in a sense, it gives it almost every driver that spends all the time and all the money, it gives them an ego going into all the situations. So I can understand why people say, I'll never go run for them again, when they go there and they get treated like trash, basically. Which, this is part of the story that I'm not saying that I don't know if this is true, but this is what I've heard. So everybody knows the guy that out there at Gold Rush that says, I should have went to effing Topeka. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that guy, okay?
Yeah.
Even if you didn't watch the live stream, you know
Right.
that guy.
Yeah, should have went to Topeka.
So I think even in a situation like that, it's all about perception. Because
Sure.
I'm going to have Sam Williams on this week. His perception of that situation might be completely different from the guy that said that's perception of the situation. In his eyes, he was wronged in some way. In Sam's eyes, he might not have been. It's all about reception, but at the end of the day, I think it is important to keep respect amongst everybody. Because if the driver feels respected, that's greatly helps the perception. Like if let's say I ran out there Blizzard Bash. If I was treated with respect all day long, the entire experience, and I was treated well the entire experience, let's say there was a questionable call in the heat that made us go to the consi. If I was treated well and it was a questionable call that I could see both sides of, in theory, I would like to say that I would be able to sit there and acknowledge both sides and accept it. But the problem is when you have these guys go out there and then they don't get treated fairly throughout the whole weekend, and then they have a questionable call like that, and they said, you know what, I'm done. I'm never running for this again. Which I think the perception of the whole situation changes based on how you have been treated.
Well, I always talk about hardcore, and I talk about hardcore as an atmosphere. From the time that you show up, that you register, the time that you go through inspection, and the time that you're in the arena, I try to create an atmosphere and a space with the utmost respect, with always leaning towards the drivers, on time, on aspect, on calls, on this, on as much as I can. No matter who they are, no matter where they come from, no matter if I know them or I don't know them. It's the facts. And again, I'm not saying that there ain't drivers, there ain't shows out there that it happens. I'm sure it is. But again, I'll reiterate: if those are the shows you're bitching about and complaining, ask yourself when you're there again, why am I here again? Why am I? What am I doing here? So
I agree with you. And even going back off of that, when it comes back to perception, we'll go back to that time at the bash when you guys wanted to load me.
Yeah.
That night, I told Dad when we left. I told Mom to go back and unpack the trailer because I'm loading this thing. But even though you guys didn't direct me load it, my thinking with it was, in that time, the way I felt was that these guys they don't want me to win this show. They want me to do all this stuff, which based on the cut list wasn't the problem. It was how I perceived the situation and how I thought I was being, it's how I thought I was treated. But then, not too long after that, I went up to, I forget what I was questioning, but then Casey pulled me to the side and we talked for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
After that conversation, everything was cleared up. And I think the thing is, nobody wants to go up and have the conversations because they're awkward. It's a hard thing to do when you like wanted to just cuss a guy out and go back 10 minutes later or a half an hour later to sit back and like talk the situation out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because let's be honest, as Derby drivers, we just want to be heard. Like we want to know that people actually care about our contributions to the sport. You know what I mean?
Righto.
Anything else to add on that, Frankie?
No, that's about it. Please, guys, I'm gonna get all the rules posted. One thing I think about hardcore and about the rules is I watch a lot of guys tell me I'll read on Facebook what they're looking for or what they'd like to see in a rule set, and I look at my rule set, and it's exactly what they tell me. Now I don't know if it's me being like warrior, gladiator. What I asked this year that some of the guys, once I get everything updated and I get all these fair agreements behind me and I get the rules updated, they go to our website that I spend a ton of money on every month and I spend a ton on to get done, and take a look at our rules. Read our rules. Even if you're not ever going to run a hardcore show, let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts about the rules, how you like them, how they're worded, things you see bad. I will always and forever take the bad with the good because you need rain and you need the sun to make the grass grow. And I can't do any better if I don't know there's something wrong to begin with. So please help me to help you guys. I just asked this year that with the rule sets that we got and things that guys take a look, and if you feel slighted or you feel this way, or you feel that way, come try a hardcore show. Come feel it, see it, try it, the atmosphere, the feeling. It's more than just a demolition derby. We actually, truly, heartfeltly give a shit about the way things do. I am not perfect, but I promise you I will give you guys 110% to the best of my abilities to make things right and fair. This year more than ever, I need the support. Last year was another tough year for me. I'm not going to lie. But you talk about competing, like we talked on the phone earlier, about competing. I guess in a way, I compete with the other promoters. I may not be the hardest hitting car out there, but I'm going to stay. I got longevity. I'm here.
Going off of that, Frankie, I will say this: out of 90% of the county fairs I have ever ran, the one thing I hear the most, especially when it comes to the builder class, is how bad this promoter is, how much basically everybody complains about the promoters, in around us. I'm not going to lie to you, a lot of people do. But the thing I don't understand is if you truly complain about them and you truly dislike it, go and try a hardcore show. Because when it comes to county fairs, they're the most thorough and level-headed shows that I have ever been to. Tony just said in the chat he'll drive 7 hours to run a hardcore show anytime. It's because like when you go to a hardcore show,
Try
they
to give you
truly
that.
feel like you matter.
It ain't the Bash for Cash. It ain't the Gold Rush. But I try to give you that same element, that same respect, that same platform that they do at the big show. For some of you, for some people that run once or twice a year in front of their family, it is their big show. It is their Blizzard Bash. It's only the county fair a lot, but it's the one that the whole family comes, and it's a big deal to them. So I try to put them on make a big deal out of it. Um,
I
so
get you, Frankie. It's all about how people want a derby. Some people, they like going and getting treated terribly at their county fairs all the time, me personally, that's the reason why I don't like running county fairs. But it is what it is.
sorry, I'm typing in my fair board, buddy.
Oh, you're all good. I think we would go for 2 hours exactly there, Frankie. I think I'm gonna get off here because you're already.
All right, buddy.
How far away are you from the fairgrounds?
Well, this would be a new show for us. So I'm not going to say where or when, but stay tuned. I'm only about, I'd say, 10 minutes or so. I've been driving a little bit though, but we might possibly looking at 6 new shows this year. So
Tony said he'll run your shows till his wife gets him kicked out.
gotta love the Derby Sharks. And if it wouldn't have been for Elsie, the Hellraiser screaming in Vegas, I would have never met them, because that's what got me to look over there and say, now that's my kind of girl.
Laura.
That's how it all happened.
Awesome.
It's Elsie Godwin's fault. And those guys, all that come, those guys are, you want to talk about heart and soul, and those guys come, they're happy. They're good guys, heart and soul, and they mean they mean it. Now you run into the Sharks, you're in a fight now, and you're probably coming in numbers, but Daryl and all those, and for sure,
they are definitely some great people. I'm on a team.
Love them to death.
Awesome.
There's a lot of great people in Derby world. A lot of people ask, I can't, what burns inside me, or why I do what I do. There's some negative, but there's a lot of good. When a youth sends me a thank you, or writes me a letter, or shows me a picture, or I see a picture of a youth kid smiling, or a family hugging because they got something, or whatever. It's the little things like that keeps my fire in there burning, and keeps me coming back to try to push Derby World into another place, in a better zone. And again, I got to thank my support team: Mark Elliott, Casey Smith, Showman, Corey Roman. Probably people I talk to every day of my life, and I don't know how or if I'd ever be able to do it without them. So, and my wife Michelle, God bless you for coming on this whirlwind roller coaster ride with me. So I appreciate it. Guys like you, Freebie, it's a pleasure. We'll always have you guys as competitors at Hardcore.
Awesome. Well, I think that just about wraps up Monday night of the second week of the Iceman show, I suppose. I don't really know what else to call it, so we'll just call it the Iceman show.
Awesome. Iceman.
No more sticklers.
Go ahead.
The username for the Crashing for Kids Cancer PayPal should still be up above here. All proceeds donated there tonight will go directly towards Benson and his family, because tonight was his funeral, and it was nothing short of heartbreaking, to say the least.
Right. So guys, DemoDerbyExpo.com. Get on there, sign your first time drivers up, vendors, promoters, get your booths. We're gonna pop off 2024, April 5th and 6th in Parable County Fairgrounds, Eaton, Ohio, the home of Mark Elliott. Get your guys' gloves, get in the game. Freebies, my head compact tech, Bristol Maldone, my head full size. We'll be contacting the rest of the group right there. Freebie to get everybody involved with the so.
Awesome. Cool.
All right, guys, I gotta go. I gotta sell this. I gotta sell hardcore at 9:35 at night at the fair.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the show tonight, Frankie. Tomorrow night we have TJ McCollum. Wednesday night is Derby Icons.
Head man from Dead Man.
Yeah.
Taylor Feldkamp, great guy too. Lots of communication behind the scenes with Taylor. We talk often. Another great group of guys. Sam Williams, Tim Clark, who I look up to as one of the. I'm going to be like Tim Clark's. I know a lot of said things, but I look up to Tim Clark. He's been good to me, and I'll always make those assumptions, whether I like somebody or dislike somebody on my own. And Sam Williams, I think out there is just scratching the surface on what they're going to do. Taylor Feldkamp with Derby Icons, another one that in our talks always pushing Demolition Derby in the right direction, doing it for all the right reasons and all the right things. So glad to be part of that. Glad to be having an open line of communication with all those guys. So I'm glad to see you have them on.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. We shall see you tomorrow. Hope everybody has a great Monday night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Yep. We'll see you later, Frankie.
Bye now, Freebie.
We'll see you guys. Producer got all them hoes, Mr. Producer.